I'd like to set the scene for anyone tuning in that hasn't really been following multiplayer Doom Federation events. If you caught the podcast we recorded with King Dime back in January, you'd know that we announced the Take the Crown Doom 2 Duel tournament with a cash prize of $1,500. The basics of it being that players had 4 chances to qualify for the grand finals bracket. Well, we've reached the end of a wild qualifying stage in which we've seen some truly remarkable matches over the last 4 weeks. Not only that, but we've seen some unexpected players qualify for the finals and some other notable ones not make the cut. We're going to do a roundtable discussion recap of the qualifying stage and take a look ahead at the grand finals. Joining us live in front of your naked steaming eyes are 4 people who contributed hugely to the success so far in very different ways. Let's just go right around. We'll do Flambeau, Denzoa, and the Motherlode. Welcome, everybody.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
Bonjour.
Goedenavond.
So, the first question that I have is going to be, it's a bit of a softball question, and I'm going to direct it towards Denzoa. Denzoa,
Yes.
of course, won the first qualifier, and as such, will be seeded number 1 in the grand finals bracket. So that's news hot off the presses there. Denzoa, how does it feel to be number 1?
Kind of unexpected, if I'm honest. I mean, I went into it expecting to beat a few players that I already knew I could play well against, but I didn't really expect to actually defeat Devastation so early on. That was actually the point where I thought, yo, this is where it ends. But I made it, and I kind of, I was really thrilled. Honestly, I was really happy. At the end of it, though, I was, struggling with my wrist, but I was really happy about winning, though, yeah. Felt really good.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, actually, let's run through the list of players that have qualified for the finals. So that's 16 in total. We got Denzoa, Langrenus, Animal, Armor, Disparal, Ghost Killer, J Warrior, Prote, Dante, Zakin, The Best Killer, Cypher, Devastation, Ty, Daston, and Legion. So in the first qualifier, you actually did not lose a single match, and you took out pretty much everybody that's qualified so far. You took out Ty, Langrenus, Devastation, Animal, and then Langrenus made his way through the losers bracket in the first qualifier to meet you in the grand final, where you beat him a second time. So, I mean, I think that highly justifies your seeding as the number 1 seed in the grand finals. But I mean, those are not, those are some really strong players that you managed to make your way, basically bulldoze through to win that first qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest here, out of all the people that I played, I have to say that Langrenus was, the best out of them all that day. He was really on his day. He was not missing a single shot. His movement and his placement in game was really good. Devastation, actually, first week, I was really surprised, though. I thought he would, I really, 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 because I saw him practice a lot, so I really expected him to play a lot better than he did. I think it's maybe just because, I mean, he has a lot of priorities in real life right now because he became a father a while back. And I'm actually really glad he qualified because I remember yesterday, I think, when the qualifier began, I told him to just please qualify because I really enjoy playing against Devastation. Doesn't matter how it goes, even if I get completely demolished. I just love playing against him because he is such, I don't know, he's like my role model in Doom. Reason I actually got as good as I am right now is because of his Doom Bible. As a kid, I was about 10 years old, I think. I found it online, saw it somebody posted on IRC in a forum post. I read through all of it, and I just got really into Duel at that time.
So you actually
you
actually touched upon some themes that will be recurring through this. Basically, one of them, Langrenus, you beat him early on. That was basically round 3, so quarterfinals. You two met up very early. you managed to dispatch him. But then Langrenus became the comeback king of the loser bracket, and he absolutely bulldozed his way back into the winner bracket. Although there were some really close matches as well, but yeah, he managed to go all the way back. So there's that. That's a recurring theme through the rest of the qualifiers as well. Someone just really powering it up in the loser bracket. And then there's the question of Devastation sort of underperforming. He eventually destroyed qualifier number 4. But yeah, we kind of thought he would be one of the first people to clinch in qualifier number 1, right? And
Yeah.
from what I heard from him, like we've been talking about it a lot, it's more of he's not comfortable with Zendronum. Like he's practicing, he's trying to get
Oh, yeah.
accustomed to it, but he's like, yeah, if this was on Odamax, things might be going a bit different. And he's really struggling with sort of like the feel of Zendronum.
It's definitely a unique feel. Like
Yeah.
Zandronum for sure feels different than especially if you've been playing Odomex this entire time, which a lot of our top players have been prioritizing, or even Zidane to a certain extent. Like Zandronum has its own thing going on. So I really understand that point of view. We saw the same thing yesterday with Zenero. It's just it's a strange, I don't know, netcode issue, or I wouldn't call it an issue, just an adjustment that some people have taken to like a duck to water, and some people haven't been able to grasp at all. Devastation being one of them, and hopefully he gets it slowly but surely. Like week by week, he's been getting better. Maybe by the grand finals, he'll be back to tip top shape.
On the other hand, speaking of like training on Zendronum, there's Animal, who's also an Odomex beast, no pun intended. He's been practicing a lot with Jakist and Devastation. And Animal has made the jump to Zendronum like 100% success. Like he was really strong in that first qualifier. Like he said he actually underestimated you in the final and like took it too lightly. So like do you think that basically the one player you haven't met from the top 4 in the first one was Amar? So how would you say, does the first qualifier represent the strongest players out there? Will these 4 players actually kind of like be the bulldozers in the grand finals again?
I think they will, if I'm being honest here.
All 4.
Aside from Devastation making it in, because I think Devastation is really going to make a big comeback. Like he's really getting used to the port right now. He's really getting a lot better. I played him last time, and our score, instead of like being double digits in a loss for him, we got the 50-48. And that's just within 2 weeks. So he's really improving like really quickly. He's really getting used to the port. Animal, on the other hand, yeah, he's really, really good on Z-Damon. And I'm not kidding, he's a monster on Z-Damon. I wouldn't want to play him on Z-Damon because I don't prefer the port, but I do play it. But I don't want to play Animal there because I know he will annihilate me on that port. He's so used to it. He's like really good there. Thing is, though, when it comes to playing Zandronum, the port is so different. Like it's vastly different in the net code and the feeling of it because the mouse input is different. The uncapped feels a little bit different from Z-Damon. I play uncapped, for example. It's just like it's a big change when you come to it. Like Animal, Devastation, and the likes really have to get used to it. While I have been playing, and Amar as well from and Langrenus too. We've been playing Zandronum a lot, mainly because of the DML as well, and some events that are hosted there. And just over the years, I've always played Zandronum and Skulltag. I have always been playing Z-Damon and Otomix as well, so I'm kind of used to those things as well. That's why I also played in the WDL. But aside from that, I think Qualifier 1 does represent kind of like the best players there are, because Amar, as one example, is really, really good. I was really surprised he lost to Animal because he wouldn't. I think it's because of the stress, because he usually never loses that kind of match. Because Amar is like, he's something else. He's like, how do I say? He's like the Rafa of the Doom community. He's smart,
he's a living
he's good,
aimbot.
and he's
That's
really
what he is,
dedicated.
like,
Yeah, he's really dedicated.
Well, something that we
and
talked
he
about in chat prior to, sorry to interrupt you. We thought there would be like this white knight player that came in like in qualifier 3 or qualifier 4 that hadn't played and would just come in and annihilate, that had been practicing in the shadows and like nobody knew, but we didn't see that. I mean, so that's another thing to consider, that most of the players who qualified had did not qualify in their first attempt. So I think that lends itself to your point where you think that the first 4 players that qualified are going to be the strongest contenders in the grand finals, because outside of, I believe, J Warrior, none of you guys had to try it 2-3 times to qualify. So you were
and
able to
yeah,
get it right
and
off the bat.
outside of J Warrior, basically the first one represented the full strength of the playing field. Like there was everyone, and everyone dishes it out, and some people just fell short in the first one. They had their redemption qualifiers, but like if this represents how it might unfold in the final, someone might get better for the finals. But yeah, there was already a huge showdown in week 1, and you 4 guys ended up on top. So that might suggest some things for the grand finals.
There's another factor that I think you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but what we saw with like week 1 to week 2 to week 3 is we didn't have the same group of people playing. So once that first group of people played, there were some players that didn't play week 1 at all. They just didn't enter the tournament. Those are the people who advanced. Week 2, now we've got a new crop because some people are starting to show up. Ralphus starts like, "Hey, I'm here to play," and then yesterday we had Zanero in, and even if they didn't qualify, they still shook up the way that perhaps it would have gone for other players. Like directed people in a different direction in the bracket. There's a lot of confounding factors here, but
Yeah,
the
of
competition
course.
is not even necessarily on the same level week by week. It changes entirely. Once we've gotten Denzo out of the way and Lingrinas, Animal, Armor, once those guys are out of the way, the rest of the qualifiers didn't even have to worry about them. They're just trying to beat each other.
Right, and if you look at the players that ended up qualifying at the end of the day that were, eliminated in qualifier 1, really strong players: Disparel, Legion, Ty, there's in the best killer, Dante. I mean, there's and Devastation. There's a whole list of people that ended up later becoming qualifiers that didn't make it out of that first bracket. So, that's going to be a challenge for them. I think Denzo is right. I mean, these 4 players right now, I think, have to be considered the front runners to take the top 4 spots.
Oh, and by the way, just saying that it's still like even if the players are seated as they are, the thing is, like, some of those games were extremely cutthroat. Like even in week 1, what we had in uh, the final game of the loser bracket, because before the final, that was Langranus and Amar. Amar just went on his own redemption tour, defeated Legion and Devastation, and then played Langranus. And that match ended up 50-49 to Langranus. And that was best of 1. So we shouldn't make any assumptions, because that was just a cruel piece of luck for Amar, and just Langranus ended up with the final lucky frag, basically, in a best of 1 game. So I would say, like, we can say that you bulldozed everyone in the winner bracket, but everyone who emerged from the loser bracket has to be sort of compared on the same level, because those games were just extremely cruel.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of Doom. Doom, in my eyes, has always been about 60% to 70% just pure skill, and then the other percent is just spawn fragging. That's it. If you're good at spawn fragging, you're guaranteed to have a couple of free kills just thrown right at you by the engine. Just sometimes the game is just like, here, take about 6 frags in a row on King in the rocket launcher, for example. Those things happen. You got to really reconsider sometimes when you're playing. Like, for example, as you said, 50 to 49, Langrenus and Amar. It could have easily been the other way around. If Amar had just gotten one more spawn frag in the entire game, it would have been 50-49 for him. That's kind of how Doom works. Like, sometimes it doesn't really come down to who has the most skill anymore. Sometimes it just comes down to who has the most patience and is willing to take advantage of the quirks the engine has.
And
And
we should mention that we're
Go
taking
ahead.
this luck factor off the table, sort of, for the grand final, because the loser bracket will also be best of 3. Because it was super cutthroat in the qualifiers. We did it for limiting the time the tournaments would take, but for the grand finals, I don't think it would be fair to have best of 1 in the loser bracket. So we're moving to best of 3, and these sort of 50 to 49 streaks of luck, that will be limited. So we'll see a lot longer tournament, but one that's much fairer.
If you look across the landscape of the whole tournament itself, the amount of games that we saw 50-49, 50-48, 50-47, or some of those, like, in the last 5 frags of a match, one player who's been down the whole game comes up and wins. We saw a lot of that. And you're right. So that's why when we move to best of 3 in the losers bracket, it's a lot more challenging for someone to get their way out of that and make their way back to potentially winning some money, because they don't just have the luck of one map on their side. They have to essentially do it all over again and prove themselves worthy. So that's going to be a huge change for players. And before we move off of qualifier number 1, I think as a whole we experienced we put a lot, I think, of time and effort into preparing as best we could for on the organizational side of things. For the tournament to start, we set up the rules, the servers, the streamers, all that. What we did not really anticipate was that the WOD we were using was going to cause the games to reset when someone connects.
What was happening? Let me describe. So Zendronum has a policy to not show spectators what the player's stack is. Like, you don't see the player health, you don't see player ammo, and there's some other limitations for the HUD, basically. And this, you can't work around it within the game, which is unfortunate for such a high-profile tournament, which is streamed by several hosts who are used to certain standards from other games. And Motherload especially was pushing for having some sort of more stream-friendly HUD. So what we did, we had other people make us some extra words and scripts that would help us with this. So this meant Hobo Master, who did the map word for us, he included some scripts that would facilitate stuff like returning to the hub map after every round ended. We also had customized HUD. What was the name of the author? I'm drawing blank right now. Aguares. I hope I pronounced it right. And one script in a Hobo Master's map set was not tested for the the load we put on it. And what it basically meant that every time a spectator left the server during the match, the game would reset and return to the hub map. This was catastrophic. This meant that matches that were like 25 to 23, all of a sudden they would go to the hub map. And we had no idea what was going on. We were panicking. We were running around with our hair on fire, and it was horrible. And that was that of course happened in like 30 minutes after the qualifier 1 started. So we were off to a catastrophic start where we looked like the most incompetent organizers ever.
Oh, it's just, I mean, you didn't really look incompetent. It's just that kind of stuff just happens, you know.
Yeah,
It was
I mean,
chaos
it's
because we
like-
had so many servers, and suddenly it happened. And I remember that you were occupied with actually commenting on the stream.
I had
Bones
to
was
drop out of the
running
stream.
things, and yeah, we had to you had to find the problem first, and when you finally found it, when finally the problem was found, we noticed. I remember that you were like, "Oh fuck!" In that game, there are spectators. If somebody now leaves, and I remember that you were praying that nobody would leave during the match. And on one server it didn't happen, on the other server it was boom, reset. Fuck no.
Yeah, because Hobomaster actually contacted me. Oh, I know what's going on, and I apologize for fucking up, and I will give you a fix really soon. So we actually had to update the servers that we could update with a new WOD on the fly, with a script that wouldn't cost this much trouble.
Yeah.
So
There's a whole lot of factors that played into that, though. And if you guys had been incompetent organizers, then the event would have ended there. Your competence is shown by the fact that we got past that relatively quickly.
That was not all. That was not all.
Indeed,
As this was
indeed.
happening, one of our clusters got hit by a DDoS attack by one of the scorned community members who just likes to do this shit. So on top of having these WOD issues, we also had a cluster down in the middle of a game because it was hit by a DDoS attack. Oh my god. At that moment, I was like,
my cluster,
shut it off.
My cluster. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just like ready to give up.
Yeah, I think we both said to each other, like, let's just end this, you know?
Oh, was it that bad?
Yeah.
But then Zoa then came up and he put up servers, backup servers.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is they just kept getting killed, like, out of nowhere.
Yes.
Just, I mean, not DDoSing, not anything. They just died, and that never occurred before. So I was like, what the hell is going on? And Zakin was all like, hey, why'd you kill the server? I told him I didn't. I didn't touch anything. So I restarted them like 4 times in a row until it finally just stayed on. That was an odd day. It was full of odd stuff happening.
Full of challenges.
Right, but that was day 1, and yet here we are, and it's the day after day 4,
yeah,
and everything's going smooth. So
yeah,
no
one here is incompetent.
I just want to say too, before, you know, I think I have to thank everybody that was really patient dealing with all the problems, because I mean, I've run things before where it's like, okay, you run into one problem and not even near the level of problems that we ran into here, and people just quit, or, you know, they just get fed up. As soon as we fixed all of this stuff, it was like 2 totally different days. There was that 1.5 to 2 hours of, why the fuck am I doing this? And then after that, it was perfect. And that actually led itself into week 2, which I thought was a huge improvement, obviously, over week 1.
And like the roundup to week 2 was actually, some people saw the struggles on week 1, and we got a huge amount of help from Aguares and Zanero, actually, who was like, I can improve the HUD situation. So it shows the frag spread, health in a more convenient setup, everything. So Zen and Aguares worked their asses off to provide us an improved version of the HUD, of the custom HUD we were using. And Hobo fixed the server issues with the script, and it was just work around the clock for the next week. So
Yeah.
that was
I
a
just
lot
wanna
of work.
put a pin in that, saying that I was so frustrated, and at no point in time, it's not like I hate Zandronum, but as soon as I heard the tournament is going to be on Zandronum, I was like, this is going to be the biggest pain in the ass to stream in the world, because it's like, if you're spectating, you can't see health and armor, period. It's one of the first things I asked Human Bones when I interviewed him in, what was it, early 2019? Why the fuck can't I see this in the stream? Like, and how do you expect a spectator to understand what's going on in the game? And how do you expect a commentator to like have any kind of input if they can't see these things? And
Well, and you
it's
asked
been
the perfect person. It's to prevent, ghosting. So, but it was cool that we were able to fix that problem. And yes, it's
we
got to make
we
light of a
ripped
situation.
we ripped the guts out of something that just required like a little tweak, is what I feel like. It
Yeah,
should have been the way it is now a long time ago, and it's okay. I'm glad we got
And
there. I'm glad we finally got to this point. But I want to
and
say
this
that
should
it was
be
such a
this should be
confounding thing for me.
sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
on.
Okay. That I didn't wait for Zanero or whatever. Flambeau and I were commissioning French guy. I was trying to pay like some dudes to make this for me, just me. That way I would have it. And then finally, eventually, we just landed on like Zenero made an awesome HUD, and it works great, and that was fantastic. And I'm really thankful for that, because it made the entire experience, I think the viewer experience and the casting experience for myself, Jahar, and Dime, and all of us, really much better.
And yeah, this should be supported by the port by default. That should be baked in. But what we had to do is, actually, we're running an extra WOD that's loaded by the server, and the server sends extra information to the players so it can be displayed with custom graphics as a completely custom HUD. So you cannot have all of this info if you're not running that extra WOD, which is just bonkers. It's a complete hack. But here we are. We're working around the limitations of the port to
but
make
you know
this
what we're
stream.
doing that's great is, let's say someone wants to run something like this again. Any kind of problem that you could have possibly had, we have figured out, and it's going to lay the groundwork to make the next event even better.
And I
So
should mention
Mhm.
I should mention that, actually, speaking of Zanaro, he didn't want to do this. He popped into one of the Twitch streams, and he got sucked back into all of this. He was like, I don't want to deal with Zandronum anymore.
Well, we should
But
preface that by saying Zanero generally never wants to do anything that involves him having to
Yeah.
do any work, which is fine, because of the fact that the resources in the Doom community are so hard to find.
But in the end, he ended up just working his ass off for us. He started joining the tournaments as a player, and now he's fully back in.
Yeah, I noticed. I really wouldn't mind if we had another tournament on Otomix, honestly.
And that's been part of a discussion, I mean, it's like choosing the port was a discussion of its own, and then I think especially now that it's running and we've had some success, trying to emulate it and run another version of this on a different port is definitely something that is, circulating out there in the airwaves. So
There
I
will
wouldn't be
be
surprised.
backlash and growing pain no matter what we decide to do. Like that, there's no getting around it. It's everybody's gonna be fucking angry. Is the people who are happy will be happy, and then the people who previously were happy are gonna be pissed off, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
And we're just
probably.
talking about me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hail
I
Bo.
week 2
also
rolls in. Week 2
Well,
rolls in.
give
Should we-
Slaird some props too, because Slaird in the background.
Oh yeah. He
Okay,
worked
I
his
know
ass
we
off.
I keep remembering things, but never having run something like this before, it was like, okay, how do we corral people? How do we get match results? Slayer took care of all of that stuff in the background,
Oh, yeah.
making sure that people got to the correct servers, posting their match results, updating the brackets. So I got to give a huge thank you to Slayer as well.
Because usually how this
Indeed,
happens
thanks,
is that
lad.
me and Bones, we fill in the brackets between the rounds. Basically, something happens, we fill it in. We definitely knew that this wouldn't cut it for a tournament where we are supposed to stream all the time. We are supposed to make game commentary. You can't just, tab to the bracket, start searching for the results, start putting them in. We had to get a dedicated.
Yeah, I only have one monitor here.
Yeah, like a dedicated bracket bitch, basically. And Slaird was such a beautiful and awesome bitch.
So looking ahead now, we've moved into Qualifier 2. 3 out of the 4 people that qualified for the grand finals in Qualifier 2 previously participated in week 1. So the 4 people that qualified are Disparal, Ghost Killer, J Warrior, and Prote, with J Warrior being the only one who had not
A new
previously
player.
participated. Yes, a brand new player. So
And actually, all 3 players who qualified, the recurring players, Disparal, Ghost Killer, and Prote, were humiliated in the first week. And I mean, really early, humiliating results. So I think this was like this would be a recurring theme in by 3 and 4. The redemption tours. Yeah. Some of these players just took a horrible hit and they just went down and started practicing, and yeah, I'm not letting them beat me again anymore. And we've seen that especially with the Sparrow, who got humiliated during this tournament again by Ghost Killer, getting dumped out of the winner bracket, and then he came back with fiery revenge, and he just swept Ghost Killer in the grand final.
Yeah, we can have another conversation on a different day about the sportsmanship that went into that matchup. But overall, glad it happened the way it did.
Yeah, there was a sense of justice to that. I will leave it at that.
Well, and if you look at the matchups too, they were really not easy for anybody. J Warrior and Ty played each other in round 3. You had Legion and Prote, Ghost Killer and Dastin, Disparal and Disco Ryan. Disco Ryan, I will say, is a player that I expected to qualify based on his performance last year at QuakeCon. And, unfortunately, he played through all 4 qualifiers, couldn't quite make the leap. But, he had some really strong games throughout each week as well.
He usually ended up losing to one of the later qualifiers in loser bracket, basically. So it was like, when it came down to fighting the real power, some that extra bit was lacking for him, because he lost to Dante here, and actually all of the people who were eliminated in the final rounds of the loser bracket were eventually the qualifiers. You can see Legion and Dante and Dastin and Ty were eliminated in the loser bracket of this one, and they all qualified later on.
Yeah, I think the most interesting story here of Qualifier 2 is Ghost Killer and Disparal meeting in the semifinals, with Ghost Killer taking both maps against Disparal. And so then you get Disparal bounce down to the losers bracket, and he begins his, comeback tour here. So he takes out Ty, strong competitor, takes out Prote, takes out J Warrior, who J Warrior lost to Ghost Killer in the winners bracket final. So that creates a rematch between Disparel and Ghost Killer in the grand final, with Ghost Killer by default leading 1-0. And Disparel comes in and wins every map on his way to taking the entire qualifier. So I think that week 2's story goes to Disparel, who got knocked out, fought his way back, and then, he came back to play the person that knocked him out and ended up winning. I thought that was an incredible show of strength from him. And, that's going to contribute to his higher placement in the grand finals.
And of course, this week clinched Ghost Killer's reputation as the heel of the tournament. I'm not sure if I would say that everyone loves a good heel, because is he a good heel?
A heel is someone that you love to hate, that you live to see. Like, I'd say yes, because the way that the finals worked out that day is that we got to see the Hulk Hogan make a big, dramatic comeback from, the lower down and defeat the person who had previously done them wrong. And the crowd wanted to see that. Like, it would have been different. It would be like, all right, get this fucker out of here. But what we wanted to see was him stick around to get his ass kicked. And it worked out.
Yeah, true. True.
And there's no disrespect. I mean, Ghost Killer, I don't have any personal feelings about him other than there was some clear bad sportsmanship going on that day, and I have a VOD of it if anybody wants to see it. So,
well,
anyway, if he loses, buy him a microphone, please. He needs a new microphone. I can tell you that.
So do you, but that's a different.
I know.
Well, honestly, though, I do agree there was some bad sportsmanship going on. I mean, there was a lot of complaining. I mean, I know Ghost Killer is a great guy, but sometimes he just pulls the card of like, oh, I wasn't trying, so I lost. Like, yeah, nice. And then other times he pulls the card of like, oh, I wasn't trying and you still lost to me. I'm way better than you. Like, okay, that's really nice. I like the guy. I love the guy. That's awesome. But if you lose, the other player was better than you at that point. No matter what you did, no matter what you tried, he was better at that point. If you didn't try, that's your loss.
He was outright mocking some of his opponents with like trying to get
kills. I'm all for.
Yeah, that's also stuff you don't really do. I mean, it's fun sometimes. Sometimes I really like that. Like in really high level play, if you have like two rivals meeting each other in the finals and they do it, nice. But you don't have to pull it on every single player you play, because that's kind of a way of disrespecting somebody in my eyes when you're actually doing it to like humiliate them. Yeah. Not to like show them like, hey, I'm winning this time and this time I'm better than you.
I'm all for drama and having a bad guy, and putting on showmanship is fine with me. What I have a problem with is wasting everyone's fucking time. Like,
sure,
yeah,
my time.
Things moving,
everyone who organized this tournament, the players, the people watching, Jahar, everybody here is giving their time so that this guy can have a tournament to play in and get to compete. And that was just fucking disrespectful to not only his opponents, but everyone involved. Every single person. That shit is like, I would have banned him, to be honest with you. Like, that was not okay. Well, but I'm glad that it worked out the way it did. And I'm glad I'm not in charge, because I was angry.
Jahar loved it. Jahar was laughing his ass off on stream. So, if there's any positive to take out of this, it's that Jahar enjoyed it.
It was funny.
I was salty as heck, but the way it ended, I just felt so vindicated.
I know. It was worth it.
I completely understand how the Motherlode feels, though, because I was watching that game. That I think I tuned in early on, and then I came back later on when he was playing Disparel in the finals. And I just saw him complain like constantly. And I was just thinking to myself, like, dude, you're on stream. You can have some fun when you're just playing like with your buddies, like in the clan, like in our EG clan and all that stuff. Like, you can do that stuff. Like, it's really funny. You're laughing at each other. You're trying to make fun of each other. It's just like all a big joke. But when somebody like King Dime or the Motherlode is like trying to stream a game and they really want to have an entertaining stream for their folks to watch, and you have one guy running around like, he, I'm not trying. Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, it's funny, sure. But not when you're trying to make something look professional. He's really making the entire community look like a bunch of babies in my eyes. If everybody thinks like, oh, they're all like Ghost Killer, it's kind of game over for us. They all think we're just a bunch of babies stuck on a goddamn 25-year-old game. I mean, I really understand how he felt like angry at that, because I was just thinking to myself at that point, like, yo, you just really gotta grow up right now. This is not the time
But hey,
to be acting like a baby.
I'm glad that we got to have that like bad guy vindication moment, and we'll see. I mean, fuck, Ghost Killer might make it all the way to the tip top of this tournament for all we know. We might see it again, and I honestly, I'm looking forward to it. At the time, I was angry, but now I'm looking forward to.
I mean, that's the thing about that guy. He's actually really good.
Oh, I don't expect
extremely
him.
good.
I don't expect him to play this sort of disrespect in the grand finals. Like the stakes,
No, I don't.
They will be there, and he will act differently, I think. I hope
there will be money on the line. That we're playing for
sure.
cash now. This is going to be pretty insane, and this is not like a small cash prize. This is a pretty substantial amount of money. Like, I don't know about you guys, but $1,500 could change my year probably. Like, oh damn! So I hope these guys take that seriously. I mean, there's some people that it's just that's chump change to them, but leave them alone. Whatever.
Spend that much on aftershave.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't.
No, I mean, so the root of the disagreement that was happening between those two players is actually the server that they wanted to play on, which I want to touch on how we're determining where players play their matches so far. I mean, it was just an idea that actually was born from a previous tournament that Ralphus ran, and I just kind of tweaked it. So basically, I created 9 different regions where you place players. So you've got, everything from the eastern United States all the way to Eurasia and the Oceanic region. And so I was able to obtain servers in New York, Chicago, Dallas, California, Germany, Britain. If we needed one, I would have found an Australian server. But, so we had all of these servers, and basically, the two players that are playing each other, you'd take, if someone's from, for example, if somebody's from Florida and then somebody is from South America, then you take where their pings are going to be most equal, and that would end up being on like a Dallas server, for example, or So I think that was part of the problem with Ghost Killer and Disparel, because they're so far away from each other that there's kind of not a middle ground. If there was a server in the middle of the fucking Atlantic Ocean, it probably would have worked out, but there isn't. So,
by the way, just if somebody doesn't, Ghost Killer is Brazilian, and Disparel is from what's it called? UAE,
United Arab Emirates.
Emirates, yeah.
It's the Arab prince ships, not a kingdom, but a princedom.
So you have to decide, basically, in the end, if the final server will be on one side of the sea or the other side of the sea, and how far from the sea. And it's sort of like you will always have someone with a pinch of advantage, basically, because overseas games are never going to be there.
Well, and so I came up with this plan, and I said, okay, well, let's try it in the first qualifier. We were basically going to use the qualifiers to work out any kinks on the way to the grand final. So I wanted to ask, since we have, we only have one player that participated, but how did you feel, Denzoa, about having to switch across different servers? Did you feel like it was a fair way to go about things? Because I didn't hear too many complaints about it. I think at the end of the day, like, I tried to give players a default server, but I also found that if they wanted to, they would work out a different server between the two of them, which I was fine with. But I thought it was pretty successful.
Yeah, if I'm being honest here, that was actually a really good addition, because, I mean, for example, I don't mind playing at US servers. I host some myself. I ping about 82 to 100, just depends on what the location of it is. I'm kind of fine with that. But some people do ping a little bit high, so they prefer to play on a European server where, for example, they have 130, and let's say somebody like Amar has 100. That's a way like smaller difference than you get when Amar's playing US with 20 and they're playing it with 200. So that's really good for them. That actually gives them like a better chance at competing because they are used to having that high ping, but they are still at a disadvantage no matter how you look at it. So it's actually a really good addition to the qualifiers and to the grand finals, maybe too, if like people can work it out together that way. It'd be nice because I mean, I like winning, but I don't really like winning something where I had the advantage over somebody else in like a really unfair way of, let's say I have 20 ping and somebody has 150 and I take the win. I wouldn't feel too good about that if I'm being honest here.
I think you've done an excellent job of compensating for that. Like it's been we had a similar situation with like the worldwide Warfort tournament a few months ago where we had Japanese players, European players, and American players all trying to play each other at the same time. So first of all, you got to agree on times. Like forget about servers, times, and then we had to find servers, intermittently around the world that will work for any potential combination of two players playing each other. And you guys couldn't have compensated better for that. Like this is just like one of those freak scenarios where we ended up with two players that just didn't have exactly the right compromise. And whatever. And then we get to the, let's flip a coin. Fuck it, we'll call it luck. And then whatever happens, happens. And that brings me to another point about something we noticed yesterday in Zandronum was the coin has a 1 in 20 chance of landing on its edge. What in the ever-loving fuck is that?
Why would that ever get put in there? I don't understand.
My
Who knows?
view rate,
Who knows?
every time that happened, I just go Super Saiyan. I just see that and I just go fuck. I explode in rage because there's no excuse for that amount of stupidity actually being coded into the port.
It's hilarious.
1 in 20. Have you ever flipped a coin? No, they haven't. Like
if it were a one,
this is so funny.
A 1 in 600 million chance, I would buy into it. Be like, yeah, this is dope. But 1 in 20 is like, come on, let's just be realistic here. That's ridiculous.
If it happened, like
I mean, it's kind of stupid to have some coin land on its edge.
Yeah, if it happened once in 10 years of constantly players flipping, it would be like, yeah, a great joke. Oh,
it would be 100 million times more funny too if that were the case.
Yeah, but this shit keeps happening because it's coded in there at fucking 1 in 20 chance, and just fuck off.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad that it worked out. I think what I saw yesterday was I put two players together. They were playing on a mutual server, and they were both pinging 80. And I think, it couldn't have worked out any more perfectly than that. So I really like the way that this is going. And we're definitely going to use this method for the grand finals. And if you look ahead now, we'll move to qualifier number 3. This was where you started to see some of these people that had played Qualifier 1, Qualifier 2, had some really close games, maybe could have qualified if one or two things went their way. This was their time to shine. So the 4 people that qualified here were Dante, Zakin, the Best Killer, and Cypher. So, I mean, just looking at the bracket, right, you have Devastation, who we seeded as the number 1 player here. He makes his way through the bracket. He plays Rude, another strong player, gets to Unknown. And, Unknown should have probably a 5 to 10 minute discussion on this podcast because he's had some of the worst luck in terms of matchups based on his seedings. And I feel so bad for him, but, he's a good sport. And then Dev makes his way and he plays Dante. And Dev, here, this was Dev's best chance to qualify. They played 3 maps. And he just needed to win 2 out of the 3 to make it into the winner's bracket final, and Dante takes him out. And so then Dev gets bounced down to the loser's bracket, and he ends up against Cypher. So Cypher has kind of been, up until this point, been playing a spoiler role. He took out Ralphus in the losers bracket in qualifier 2. He took out Legion. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Legion beat him in the losers bracket, but he was a bit of a spoiler prior to this. And so here we have Cypher coming in. Cypher in the losers bracket, qualifier 3, takes out Rude, takes out Ralphus, takes out Devastation, and earns his way into qualifying for the grand final. I mean, that's somebody that just kind of came out of nowhere and took out three of the more well-known players in the multiplayer community of the last couple of years. So, I mean, that's got to be a huge accomplishment for him. And of course, Dante actually lost the winners bracket final against Zakin. This was Zakin's second attempt to qualify. So Dante gets bounced down into the losers bracket final. The best killer had some of the best games we've seen from anybody in qualifier 3, and he went up against Dante. Dante managed to beat him. Dante comes back to the grand final, plays Zakin again, and in another situation where we saw in qualifier 2, qualifier 3, Dante takes Zakin out after losing to him in the winners bracket final. So there are a lot of
a complete sweep in a sweep as well.
There are a lot of mini storylines happening here that it's fascinating if you look at the trend through the first 3 qualifiers.
And coming into this week, this was supposed to be so Devastation was knocked out in week 1. He was busy in week 2, so he couldn't play in that one. So he's coming back with like a grudge, and he's going to crush everything in his path. And all of a sudden, he gets double teamed by Russians. What? No one fucking expected that. Like, no one expected that he would get actually double teamed by he was afraid of Dante, because Dante has been showing up some reasonable results and everything, but then the double shock with Cypher, that was incredible. Like, that was completely shocking. So this actually, it was supposed to be like Devastation gets his revenge, and we may see like all of these new signups who just appeared out of nowhere, like Ralphus and Zanaro are mixing it up, and Daston is one of the guys who hasn't been playing that much so far, but he's one of the guys who should go through because he is a strong fragger. Nope, it becomes an affair that's 50% Russian and 50% South America. That was a huge shock, actually. This was as far as results go, this was the most exciting because it was completely unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even more unexpected, like I mentioned, than Dante taking out Devastation was that role that Cypher went on. I mean, Cypher had played in the first 2 qualifiers, I believe. And, so he gets up against Zakin in the main bracket, gets knocked out, and then he just begins this, like Rage Against the Machine tour of the losers bracket. He takes out Rude, he takes out Ralphus, he takes out Devastation. That was Devastation's chance. There, he had 2 chances. All he had to do was win one of those 2 games to make it into the qualifiers for the grand final.
He fucking took out all those
the heavy hitters,
North American dogs, like Amerikanskie Sabaki. He just took them out.
Yeah, so that was a really fascinating turn of events, and I think it gave us, because you're looking for the big names, right? You're looking for the known names of people to qualify, and I think this is probably the one where it was a little bit more shocking than the other ones. I don't think people were expecting these 4 players to make it out of that one, so I thought it was actually the most exciting one, and the one that kind of left you,
yeah, and that was like, there were chirps, like after the tournament. Some people were like, "How is this possible?"
It's like,
guys, is this fair? Is this legit? How are these Russians being so good? And the funny thing is, this was coming from some of the players that maybe shouldn't talk that much because someone else might have the same, comments about them. I'm not gonna name names, but basically, yeah, it was just they were like, "Is this legit? How did this come to happen? Like, was someone cheating? Was someone ghosting? Was someone like this caught many people in such a state of shock that they started having that sort of talk."
There was a lot of discussion as to whether or not Cypher was in some sort of like Doom training chamber, like Rocky 4-esque type situation. Just
Yeah.
day in and day out, they're giving him the best food, the best exercise equipment, the best aim training, everything to get him to the point where he was. Because I don't think I've ever seen anyone in Doom. I've seen it plenty in Quake, but like this, just the movement that comes out of a player like him, where he's moving backwards across a dweller, just absolutely like ballet. It's incredible. Like the different styles of play that we see out of all these different players too. It's been such an
yeah.
amazing event, and I think that seeing someone like him, get to the top. There are other players that didn't even make the cut this time that I
But
couldn't believe their performances. Solar comes to mind.
this was also the tournament where Cypher got the brutal spawn spree on Ralphus on King.
Yeah.
That made its way around Twitter and everything. Ralphus got like 5 spawns in the BFG slots.
I think it was more than 5. I think it was like 8 to 13. Like you just lose count after a while.
yeah, you're just
Yes,
my
it
God,
was-
I can't
oh.
watch anymore. It's just is it over? Can I open my eyes?
It was so horrible for him. I imagine.
But then, like Cypher went on this spree, and then he hit the best killer, who was absolutely the dark horse of the tournament, because I was absolutely in love with his defensive game. The best killer was extremely good with his careful defensive approach, plus back strategy, and yeah, that guy with his ping, he's an Argentinian, by the way. Absolutely, 100%. His spot in the grand finals is valid.
Yeah, and if you look at how he made it there, so he loses to Dante in the winner's bracket, gets bounced down to the loser's bracket, takes out AWUP, then he comes back, takes out Zanero, takes out Daston, takes out Cypher, and he comes up against Dante again, so he can't quite overtake him there, but I mean he was one round away from getting into the grand final of the whole qualifier. So you're right, he had another like just incredible run through the losers bracket, and he was not somebody that was really on anyone's radar. He's not really on anyone's radar. I mean, hopefully now, but he's definitely it wasn't like we sat down and said, "Oh man, this guy's going to, he's going to have a shot at winning this." So I think he really proved a lot of people wrong. He got his name out there, and yeah, I think he had one of the more surprising and consistent performances of any player.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we had 3 weeks in a row where the losers bracket finalist ended up taking the grand final as well.
Not in the first one.
Okay.
Denzoa crushed it in the first one. He was unbeaten. But
That's right.
yeah, Qualifier 2 and 3 were actually sweeps in the grand final. Like reverse sweeps. This is not in a really ugly way.
I mean, we had some great matches up until now, and I'm really, really looking forward to playing the actual grand finals.
Yeah, me too. I mean, so if we look at Qualifier 4, right, happened just yesterday. For the first 4 or 5 days of signups being open, it kind of dwindled around 7 to 8 players. And what's been a theme here is Du and I, every Saturday morning for me, we sit down and we start working on the brackets. And then it's like, hi, I'm Ralphus, I'm going to play. Hi, I'm Slow Sheep, I'm going to play. Or I'm not going to play. And so we're like constantly struggling to get the brackets right. And so this week we said, okay, we're going to just hold off until the last minute. We're going to see who signs up. And sure enough, 6 people entered the day of the tournament. So if you look at some of these names, right? Of course, Devastation is here. You know, it's his last chance to qualify. Solar, Zenero, Ty. Less Than Propane is a relatively new player, but, you know, I thought he's put on some really good games. He's shown improvement over the last 3 to 4 weeks. And, you know, I was glad to see him continue to sign up. Unknown, he keeps plugging away at it. Ralphus signs up again. Disco Ryan, Asriel, Legion, Rude, and Daston. So, I mean, this was like now you're at the meat of what we're trying to do here. Now you've got some really amazing talent, and I mean there was no way of knowing who was going to win. And I think the way that the bracket played itself out and the way that the games went definitely reinforced that. Like, okay, so Devastation, his first match is against Solar. Now Solar takes out Zenero in 3 games. Solar, we were streaming that game actually. Solar, something happened with him. I don't know if he took speed or something before the game, but his aim was fucking on, like better than I've ever seen this guy play. And so he goes up against Dev, right? And so he gets into a matchup with him. The first map they play is Idea. And so Dev wins, you know, 50-39. That's pretty substantial there. We move over to King 1. From what I remember about that game, Dev really, he kind of had a handle on it, but Solar came out of nowhere in the last 15 frags. He ends up taking out Dev 50-44. So at that point, it's like, I have no idea what's going to happen. You know, Dev's struggles continue. So Dev was able to take that whole matchup on Uptight DM 50-30. So, you know, a pretty good win there. But, you know, based off of Solar's performances, you think he's going to have, like, you know, a crazy run through the losers bracket. He takes out Asriel, and then he falls to Ty. But, you know, got to give a props
50 to
to Solar.
48. 50 to 48. That could have
Yes.
gone either way. And we should mention that Ty got knocked out super early in a very surprising exit to Slow Sheep. But then Ty went on his absolute tear through the loser bracket. So basically, the qualifier 4, everyone was watching it. Station qualifier clinch, basically, like, yeah, is Devastation actually going to qualify or not? Holding their breath. But the actual story was that Ty was knocked out in round 2, and then he won 5 games in loser brackets, like best of ones. He won 5 best of ones in a row. That's insane. And against Solar, it was 48. So he was dancing on the edge the entire time. So actually, Ty is the big story of Qualifier 4.
For sure. And even looking at, like, okay, Ralphus signs up again. Ralphus gets a matchup against Disco Ryan. Disco Ryan took him out, I believe, in Qualifier 2. Ralphus had some problems with him. So, you know, I read Ralphus saying, oh, great, I got to go up against this guy again. So they go to 3 maps here, and Ralphus ends up taking that. Then Ralphus moves on to Legion. Ralphus takes that in 2 games. And they were actually close scores, you know, 50-44 and 50-42. So Legion gets bounced to the losers bracket. Ralphus then moves on to face Daston. Now, Daston just kind of had, you know, Daston was having a good day, and he kind of took Ralph out 50-38, 50-39 in, you know, fairly decisive. But again, you have someone like Ralphus who was 1 win away from qualifying. So he gets bounced into the losers bracket. So if you look at Ralph's story here, Ralph actually waited for Ty. So Ralph was sitting there, and again, he had another chance. Here it is, 1 game, he can qualify. He ends up playing King 1, which is where he had that awful series of spawn frags in Qualifier 3, and Ty takes him out. So that's it for Ralph. He can't make it any further. And I just think, for someone like that to have come so close, that was another surprise for him to not qualify. And then if you follow Legion's bracket, so Slow Sheep, like you said, Slow Sheep took out Ty, which was a surprise because
Slow Sheep took out Unknown. That was a surprise.
Yeah,
Slow Sheep took out Ty. Another surprise. At this point, we were like, "Who is this guy?"
Because he was not seeded. He was not seeded at all, and so he just went on this tour through the main bracket. So he goes up against Dev. He loses to Dev.
Yeah,
but then he drops.
Obliterated him. Yeah.
So he drops down to the losers bracket, and because he made it further than Legion had to play, he had to play a couple more games, right? So Legion goes up against Unknown, but I should mention before that, right? Unknown goes up against Rude, and so they play King 1, and Unknown was down by like 8 or 9 frags for a large part of the game. And he went on this run right at the end. Like Rude had 49 frags, and Unknown might have had like 44 or something, maybe. And Unknown gets 6 or 7 frags in a row, wins King 1, 50-49. And, I was all in Unknown's corner at that point. I was just following him no matter what happened. I really wanted him to win. But he gets matched up against Legion, and Legion says, well, fuck, I've played in all 4 of these damn things, and I'm in the losers bracket. My back's up against the wall. He takes out Unknown, and he moves on to play Slow Sheep, which is not an easy task. And he actually takes Slow Sheep out in a very, very close game, 50-47 on Mu2D. I mean, that game was back and forth the entire time, and either one of those players could have qualified. But Legion squeaks out a win there and goes up against Ty. Ty, I mean, if you look at Ty, right, he like you said, he lost very early on. So he had to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games just to make it into the grand finals against Dev. So he had a lot of work to do. He made his way all the way through, got to the losers bracket final after taking out Legion. Daston
and he took
lost.
Daston again. Ty took Legion by 50-48.
Yes,
on fucking Mu2D. This was all incredibly tight. It's just so close.
Yes, and he goes up against Daston. Daston lost to Dev in the winners bracket final. So in the losers bracket final, it's Ty and Daston on, of all maps, Dweller 2 map 11. I mean, that was
the
just
most
like
shocking selection of the
nobody
entire
picks
tournament.
that map,
And the 2 most frag heavy, pardon my vocabulary, brainless players in the entire tournament, they picked Dweller, and they play a strategic game on Dweller. It was amazing.
I believe the time almost ran out.
Yeah, it was a long game.
Yeah, it was a long game, but it was great. Ty takes that one by 4 frags, and so then he bounces up to the grand finals against Devastation. So, of course, the way that we've been doing it, Devastation starts 1 game up since he won the winners bracket, and game 1, Dweller 2 map 11. Dev had a pretty, I wouldn't say pretty comfortable, but he had a comfortable enough lead that, you were like, okay, he's probably going to be able to take this as long as he doesn't do anything
Everyone
crazy.
was like, yeah, he's taking this. He's in.
Yeah.
He's cruising.
And Ty had something to say about that. So Ty comes back and ties it 49-49. And they were both low on health. And Dev just came out around the corner at the wrong moment, and Ty gets him. And so now here we are, we're tied 1-1. And I'm sure Dev is shitting himself because, Dev takes these kind of losses to heart. He does not take them well. So I'm sure he was really mad at himself. And that's evidenced by the fact that Dev wins the next 2 maps to completely take Qualifier.
At that point, we didn't know what to expect. Like at that point, we were like,
right.
Is Dev again like in that wrong mind place? Like is he tilted again? But no. Next game was Idea, and and Devastation just yeah, he likes that map. That was obliteration.
Yeah.
That was a spanking, basically.
I think that map plays more like a classic map than any of the other new maps that we included. So it's definitely something that is familiar for Dev. But Dev finally gets his chance to win a qualifier, and that's going to help him in the seedings for the grand finals. So yeah,
as much as you can boost seedings, qualifier
right.
4.
Yeah. So I don't think I did this before, but the 4 players that qualified officially in the grand finals: Devastation, Ty, Daston, and Legion, by his own admission, sneaking into the finals. Wigs Incorporated. So there you have it. I mean, that's kind of the story of the first 4 qualifiers. I'll go through the list of players again here: Denzoa, Langrenus, Animal, Armor, Despero, Ghost Killer, J Warrior, Prote, Dante, Zakin, the Best Killer, Cypher, Devastation, Ty, Daston, and Legion. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Okay, Denzoa, like who are you afraid of the most? Just in that list. You're seed number 1. We know this. There's no way around that.
If I'm being honest, it's probably Lang, Devastation, and Animal. And if I had to pick one of those 3 players, it'd be Langrenus. Because I mean, he's a really tough spawn fragger. He hardly misses any spawn frag at all, and that's really
Serbian
lethal.
aimbot.
Yeah, that's really lethal, especially in a duel. Like if he gets a few like good spawns on me, and I go on a little bit of a loss streak and frags, I'm definitely gonna lose. So I really have to watch out for that. On the other hand, you have Devastation, a guy who's really really smart, who can outplay me if he's in the right mindset. And Animal, well, he's kind of a mixture of both. He's smart and has good aim, but he lacks kind of what both actually have. But the thing is, he makes up for that by being a good all-round player.
Also,
so his aim is good, his mindset's good.
Like he seems to like does he have is he a millionaire? Because he's like playing around the clock. Like he's just training and training. That's comfortable.
I have no clue, honestly. I really don't know.
Like that's
No,
comfortable.
he's not a millionaire. He's not a millionaire.
I wish
But
I
indeed,
could practice
he trains
as much
a
as
lot.
he does, because I actually haven't got any training in at all. I've really just not had the time, just because of my work and everything. I've been working like 12 to 14 hour shifts and all that. I just took like a week off because I just needed to rest. I didn't even play as much because I just needed some rest. So I'm really worried about the final tournament. I'm not gonna lie.
Mind games by seed number 1.
Yeah, I wish they were.
He wants you to underestimate him.
We'll see, though.
The only advantage I think that some of the players who qualified in the later ones are going to have are they've had a chance to see how people are playing the maps more than, say, the people that qualified in 1 and 2. So like Dev, Ty, Legion, they've gone through these maps tens of times, probably more. So they've gotten a little more experience on the map. So we're going to see, I guess I'm interested to see what maps end up getting chosen in the grand finals as opposed to what we've seen so far in the qualifiers, because I think it's been really heavy on the classic maps, not so much the newer maps.
But we've actually seen some decider games on the newer maps, like out of nowhere, a lot of Uptight, and it's like, what?
Oh yeah, Uptight's actually a pretty good map. I like it a lot. That's why I didn't play it as much, because I was hoping that in the first qualifier that somebody was gonna pick that map against me
It's sort of
if I just like didn't ban it, if I just acted like I didn't like it.
Oh yeah, but it's
Because
an easy map to pick up. Like the flow is natural. It's sort of like a green war map. You don't really need to practice it. You sort of like just drop into it and you're set to go. Like it's a easy issue.
yeah,
Like it.
exactly. If you like, a good plus is if you've already had like years of experience playing the game.
Mhm.
It's just so easy to pick up on new maps. I mean, you just learn where the spawns are.
If the-
You look at the super shotguns. You're like, okay, these are the spots I'm gonna have to fight for, and you just play the map. It doesn't matter if you have no experience on the map. All you got to do is be careful, control the super shotgun spawns, find armors if there are any, find medikits if there are any, and just go with the flow of the map. Do everything your opponent thinks you're gonna do, but
By the way,
do it better than they think you're gonna do it.
now you're completely like citing from the book of Belgian Jesus Mortology. That was completely his strategy. Like he was absolutely unbeatable on this sort of like he would pick up a new map. He would find a corner. Like, okay, this corner is close to an SSG. That's all I need. That's all I need. I have this corner. I can, peek around the corner. I have the best reflexes in the universe. So I'm just going to use this corner and I'm just going to beat everyone into submission around this one corner.
Yeah, that's usually my approach as well. I mean,
So is this
I actually
some
never met
Belgian
Mortology,
genetics?
it could be. It could be. It's a possibility. I can't say for sure, but no, I do remember Mortology. He was really good. I wish he was in this tournament.
Mm.
That would have been really.
This would be
kind of unfair.
This would be completely
still is
up his alley. He was not one for
Yeah.
the classic maps. He hated Dwango 5 map 1. He was absolutely horrible map. Doom 2 map 1. Judas, not his strong
same.
map. But drop him in a random, not so well known map, and he would beat you 50-20, and you would be like, what just happened?
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
man. I kind of miss the old days sometimes.
we got to make new memories, and we're gonna do that.
Yeah,
We're
definitely.
gonna do that next week. I want to give a shout out to the streamers for the finals. Well, the streamers for the qualifiers, and joining us again for the finals, Jahar at Tasty Spleen TV, King Dime, of course, and Motherload with In the Keep. So we'll go to twitch.tv/TastySpleenTV, twitch.tv/King Dime, twitch.tv/In the Keep, and the grand finals will be next Saturday. I should just say March 14th, 3 p.m. Eastern on Xandronum. Anybody have anything else that they wanted to talk about before we close the book on our qualifying stage here?
Yes. As you just said that, the 14th of March, 3 p.m. Eastern time. What time is it right now in Eastern?
4:41.
4:41. So that's an hour and 41 minutes ago. Let's say it goes about 4 hours. I hope I can make the whole thing
It should
because
be.
that is my girlfriend's birthday. I did not keep that in mind as I signed up.
You can
Listen. You can buy her a hell of a birthday present if you fucking win $750.
That's
man.
true.
He should watch you, and then you're like, I won this for you, baby.
I can try that. I'm definitely going to try that. No, I think all should be good. We probably go into this party for her birthday, but I think we're probably not going to leave at 9 p.m. That's a little bit too early.
All right. Well, there you have it. I'm not going to go through the list of players that have qualified again because it's going to hurt my mouth here. Yeah, it's okay. But thank you, Denzoa, do some Flambeau and the Motherload. Hopefully everyone tunes in, like I said, Saturday, March 14th, 3 p.m. Eastern for the grand finals of King Dime's Take the Crown Duel 2 Duel Tournament Doom 2 Duel Tournament, blah, 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 hosted by Multiplayer Doom Federation. I'm Human Bones. Thank you very much for joining me. See you on the battlefield.